Science only exists because in the universe everything is repeated. If scientific experiments were not perfectly repetitive, there would be no science. First scenario, the own existence. From the way we perceive that physics works, everything indicates that the universe is infinite in space and eternal in time. Being eternal in time, the universe never had a beginning. The concept of time only has local validity and does not exist for the universe as a whole. There is no universal standard time. By the way physics works, we know that there is no the time of the universe. Time is nothing more than a relationship, a comparison, a conventional standard measure of movement, made by observers. Where there is no observable movement, time does not exist. All observable motion in the universe is, physically, always completely equivalent to a perfect situation of rest. This comes from the nature of empty space and is what allows movements to exist. All motions in the universe are always only relative and depend on observers to exist. There is no absolute motion or movement that has a real foundation in the universe, because the nature of matter and empty space are the same, but they are only apparently different. That is why it is always valid to consider that every movement is also a perfect situation of rest. This comes from the fact that space is a place continuous, or of equal and inseparable nature everywhere. The always valid identity between rest and motion, the explanation of Newton's second law, which says that a force accelerates a mass in an exact inversely proportional way, among others, show us that matter is nothing more in its most vital essence than just a type of movement. Kepler's second law, which says that equal areas through space are traversed in equal time intervals, reveals that the matter-energy set in empty space do not have different or separate natures, but that have the same and unique nature that makes them exactly proportional, forming a unique physical whole. Exactly or inversely proportional in a local and indistinguishable or inseparable in a general or universal way. The complete void that is the most primordial foundation of the universe is called space by an observer when he uses some kind of movement, when he moves a ruler or a measuring tape that, being mass, are also movements, to measure it, or automatically to simply view it. An expansion of space, an inflationary space as suggested by some, while non-relative or absolute physical fact is an incoherent idea because the metric of space is completely dependent on the observer, totally relational or relative. It is not physically possible to delimit an empty space and measure that its boundaries spontaneously expand. It makes no logical sense to mean that the complete void is increasing in size because the complete void is already infinite in extent. It's already complete. The theory about the origin of the universe states that space did not exist before and is now increasing in size, and that matter remains preserved in its geometry without increasing in size. Fortunately for our good understanding of the universe, this is not what happens. If matter and space had different natures, we could hardly understand how the universe and physics work. At most, we could more or less describe them without ever really being able to understand them. If matter and space had different natures, there would be no reason to observe the constant and exact proportionality always found between the different concepts of physics. The same theory about the origin of the universe cannot explain any logical reason for this supposed increase in space to occur. The idea of the absence of space is equally strange. How could complete emptiness be absent? If there was no space, the void, we would have to have something that would prevent the occupation of that space. But everything that takes the place of space, such as matter for example, has the same nature as space itself. What would a region be like beyond the border of space? Where would there not be space? Any region that offered resistance that would not allow its occupation due to the lack of empty space would be like matter, but matter is also like empty space in its foundation, as always demonstrates the exact proportionality of the physical equations that relate them because they have the same nature and cannot be separated from it. It is impossible to find an alternative logic that may give some support to the hypothesis of the origin of the universe. It is a maxim of physics that two bodies cannot occupy the same place in space at the same time. In fact, matter never occupies a place at the space. Matter always takes place of space. Both matter and space have the same nature, they are not independent or totally different things. In fact, matter is not something other than space universally or for the universe as a whole. Because the nature of matter and space is the same in any region in the universe, there is either space or matter energy. Never accumulation of both in the same place. The theory of the origin of the universe simply cannot explain the workings of itself. The mathematical cohesion of all the equations of physics strongly argues against this theory.